Good morning and welcome. This is Sunrise Daily. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Good morning from Abuja. I'm Maokpe Ogun-Yusuf.
Well, this morning we start straight with the papers because we have someone to join us in the reviews today, and she is a former editor of the Punch newspaper, and Olabisi Folutile joins us here in our studio. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
So many things happening in the nation that sometimes you wonder. First of all, I don't know, permit me to ask you this. How easy or not is it the job of an editor to select what should make the headlines on the front page of a paper daily? It must be, well, is it that easy? I don't know.
Not even now.
Not even now.
Not even now. You have,
so many issues.
So many issues. So 10, 20 killed in Taraba, maybe 40 in Niger, 200 students abducted. You just wonder, insecurity here and there. Then somebody is committing suicide in another place. Resident doctors are on strike. Different kinds of things. And you just wonder, which one do we give preference to?
Well, let's see what your colleagues, how they reflect the issues today. We begin with the Vanguard newspaper this morning, and it leads with party politics. APC crisis, Osinbajo governors seek safe landing options. That's what you have on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. And the riders include this one. Governors Umahi, Sule, Bagbuni say there is no conflict. And Delta APC, crisis worsens as Kiamu others kick. Omagege, 21 others back. Options, so many things happening right there on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper. And, a lot of interest has been drawn to this APC party politics. I'm wondering, what do you think?
Actually, it's all about 2023. And the parties in power. Every attention is geared towards remaining in power. I think the reason why attention is being drawn to the party of recent is the outcome of the Supreme Court's judgment on Ondo State election, which, so to say, shows that, the process of getting candidates to contest is now very important. Politicians are looking at the process. And the fact that APC may have failed in some ways in that process, because technically, Ondo State governor could have been removed if not that the Supreme Court said that the opposition candidates did not include the party chairman in its suit, which also was a controversial matter because you could see the division even among the Supreme Court justices to show you that it's a very shaky thing. So I think right now people are just concerned about the process of getting people elected, and they are thinking that APC may be in soup come 2023 if it doesn't check itself on time.
I'm happy you talked about process, and sincerely, if we're going to get the product right, perhaps the process should be number one. But other stories making the headlines. Look at this one right under the picture. APC, PDP have ruined Nigeria. Don't vote for them again. I subscribe to the former chairman of INEC. What do you make of that? He's also a politician now, so, people would say, well, what else would we expect him to say, right?
Exactly. People are already saying, well, he's floating the party, PRP, and he's probably making a case for his own party, and he can't really convince Nigerians at this point that that is not the case. Others are even saying that it's part of the process that brought us to this point, and that you should just please leave us alone and allow us to go through our troubles and get out of it in peace, so to say.
I don't know what to make of that one. But then there is this other one. IGP appoints DCP Disu to head IRT, replaces Kiari. The story is on page 8 of the Vanguard newspaper. Is that for you a kind of final position on the indicted police officer?
Well, I think is the first thing to be done. It might not be the final position, because the man stands innocent until proven guilty. And the fact that it's being called for questioning is not the same thing as being guilty of that offense. But at the same time, I think it's right for him to vacate his position for investigations to be properly done. So if he gets out of the situation, I think he should be able to come back to his position if he is not indicted in any way. But
has that ever happened in Nigeria? I mean, how many EFCC chairmen have left their offices? Don't even let's say anything about that one. But then, as you know, it's in the realm of public space. So we'll wait for all of the investigation and everything. But that's the Vanguard newspaper this morning, Malcolm.
Well, let's quickly run through The Guardian for you, and you'll see what's on your front page. After $75 billion investments in 20 years, telecoms service still struggling. That's the lead story on the front page of The Guardian. Subscribers decry increase in drop calls, slow data operations. Lack of FX, insecurity, cut operators' expansion, upgrade plans. Government failed operators on power generation, says Alton. NCC plans sanctions as countries' access gaps persist. So that's the lead story this morning. After $75 billion investments in 20 years, telecoms service still struggling. Now, this is important when we take into context the fact that electronic transmission was on the table recently in the National Assembly, and you saw the debate that went down right there. But I would like to ask the thoughts of our guest this morning, what you make of this headline and the riders that directly come under it, that our telecom service sector is still struggling 20 years after, and this huge amount of investment. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's not limited to the telecoms sector alone. Almost every sector in Nigeria struggles. And if you look at other factors that are supposed to affect the functioning of this sector, you know that we are not likely to get anything better than what we are getting right now. Because it's a whole thing, and we have to look at things holistically. Now, looking at our power sector, for instance, is it working well? They need this power. And looking at other issues too, are they working well for us? Looking at issues of regulations, are they even consistent? I agree that they are struggling. In fact, some of them that were doing well before are beginning to even flounder more and more. I don't want to mention any particular one. But I think it's not just looking at them alone, but looking at the entire system holistically. Because if we don't work on everything, we are not likely to get the right results.
And we really should be worried, because it was seen that this was the only sector that was doing well despite the COVID-19 lockdowns. The reasons are obvious. A lot of people had to work from home. We relied more on data and things of the sort. But when we see that it's struggling and, obviously could do much better than it's currently delivering, shouldn't we pay a little more attention of it if it has the potential to bring us, well, we're out of recession, so they say, but at least to make the growth a little stronger. What do you think?
I agree with you, and I think our regulatory body should wade in at this point and also be more patriotic in their handling of the telecom sector, because really it's a sector that has grown the country, even business-wise, in the past, and still doing so. I'm glad you made mention of the COVID-19 episode, and it's really worked well. Maybe that's also brought pressure on the sector, because there has never been a time that everyone probably relied on the telecom sector, for doing their businesses as it has been since the COVID era and the post, well, are we in post-COVID, really? But since the COVID era. So I think the regulatory body should do something about making this sector function better.
Well, it's important you ask that question, whether we're post-COVID, because if you look just beneath at the bottom of the paper, federal government confirms COVID-19 third wave amid doctors' strike. Yes, indeed. COVID-19 third wave is confirmed now, and National Association of Resident Doctors are on strike. Lagos records 6 COVID-19 deaths daily. Government places Lagos, Akwa Ibom, Oyo, Rivers, Kano, Plateau, FCT as high-risk states. Directs federal state hospitals to ensure service delivery is not disrupted. Don't mix AstraZeneca with Moderna vaccine, Sanwo-Olu warns. Well, that's what we have on page 2 of the paper. So, third wave is here. In the midst of the fact that we've thrown away all what's the word they use now? Is it non-pharmaceutical interventions? And it would seem that everybody is going about their business without their masks. And the fact that we don't even have enough vaccines to go around. I don't know. What are your thoughts with this third wave?
This is serious. Amid doctors' strike again, it's a serious issue. And for Lagos to record 6 deaths daily, that shows the seriousness of the matter. And like you rightly mentioned, it's unfortunate that we've abandoned almost all our COVID-19 protocols. People just do their things the way they like, and given the peculiar situation of our own situation in Nigeria, whereby we have a lot of problems, even on our hands, we don't even have enough health facilities to start with. And having this COVID, the variant that is said to even be more dangerous than the previous variants, it actually calls for a serious concern. And it is hoped that we take urgent measures to actually get out of this situation. I think the states that are mentioned should urgently work at reducing the spread of this pandemic, so to say.
Let's leave it there for the Guardian newspapers.
Yeah, thank you, Mokwe. The Nigerian News Direct leads with the resident doctor strike. Nationwide strike, resident doctors shun stranded patients. That's what the paper leads with this morning. The story is on page 2, as relatives seek treatment in private hospitals. No work, no pay directive will not work, as ascribed to NERD. Find the story on page 3 this morning, right there on the screen. You know, what's even more shocking about this is the fact that, at least from available information, it's like the Ministry of Health is saying they're not even aware, that this was going to happen. An officer of the Ministry of Health was quoted as saying, "Look, as at Friday, he can confirm that there was no letter to the Minister of Health on this matter." And I'm just wondering, exactly what do you think is going on?
Well, if he says that as a citizen, I will not say so. Because these doctors have been giving us warnings in the past, telling us that they will go on strike because the government has not yielded to its own side of agreements with them when they initially went on strike. And I think they've been talking about it. Well, whether they issued an official letter to the ministry, I may not be able to say categorically, but I also think that the ministry should also monitor the news and happenings. But I want to doubt if that association wouldn't have issued a letter. Then, or should we ask, are they supposed to issue a letter, a formal letter to the Ministry of Health that they want to embark on a strike? Is that the official channel?
Well,
because we need to also confirm that. It might not really be the official channel of communicating a strike action. I think they issue notices, and those notices are published, and it is also expected that whoever is concerned should be aware that they are planning to do that and then make necessary interventions.
Well, perhaps there are some safe assumptions to make. I mean, first of all, you don't go to your employer and say,
exactly.
I want permission to go on strike.
Exactly.
That doesn't happen.
Exactly. Exactly.
Secondly, I mean, they have been having conversations with the federal government for a while, and as you said, there has always been that constant communication of whether or not, government is doing what they are supposed to do. That's another thing altogether. But it's even more dicey, when we take into consideration the third wave of COVID-19, as we said. And also on the front page of the Nigerian News Direct this morning, FG takes delivery of over 4 million Moderna vaccine doses from the US. This has been a long time coming, and it's here. How gratifying? I guess we'll wait to see over time. And this one, World Bank AFDV provide $550 million support for off-grid solutions. As according to the Rural Electrification Agency. The story is on page 13 of the paper this morning. What do you make of this? Is this likely to help us achieve our targets?
Yes, if I'm sure AFDB will also monitor, the expenditure properly. And I think it will help in the rural areas. In any case, we know that a lot of our rural areas are not yet enjoying electricity. And we also know that if we want to achieve that on our own, we will probably spend hundreds of years. I mean, here we are since independence. So I think it's going to help. And not just getting that power alone, it has other impacts. But it's going to improve on businesses in these rural areas. It's going to improve on their well-being in general, because you have access to power, you have access to lights, you can store things and all of that. So I just hope that it will be well monitored to achieve the desired purpose.
That's the Nigerian News Direct, Marwa.
Well, let's quickly look at leadership for you this morning. They have this one. Fallout of Supreme Court judgment. Oshibajo, APC governors, ministers explore safe options. Safe is in parentheses there. You see there, Buni Committee is Keyamo's brainchild. That's according to Omo Agege. I was only consulted to fashion way forward for the party over barrage of litigations. That's according to the minister. Let's not forget that it would seem that these are major factions in the APC in Delta State. So that's what we're seeing on the front page. We've taken a look at that somewhat, but take a look at this particular story, which is like a continuation from what we saw last week. Forex, CBN assures customers of bank's compliance, allays fears over domiciliary accounts deposits. Now, there have been fears as to what could eventually happen now that the central bank has stopped sale of Forex to bureau de change. I don't know, what you make of this assurance that banks will comply. That's coming from the CBN. What are your thoughts? Do you feel assured if you need to travel?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. And I don't know how it's going to be possible. You see, the issue of Forex is not just about banks complying. It's an issue of availability. We are talking about scarcity of Forex here. So it's not just whether the banks want to comply or not, but the fact that you cannot give what you don't have. And I think that is the problem that the CBN should be addressing, not an issue of banks being, ready to give what they probably do not have. The manufacturers are lamenting. Is it now that somebody that wants to travel, that needs, what do we call it? BTA, that the banks will now give preference to? So I'm not sure if I want to travel now that I will have access to BTA. I'm not very sure about that. So I think the issue of scarcity is what should be addressed. And that has to do with the economy itself. What are we doing to get dollars apart from relying on oil? I think that should be the issue here. What are we doing to also get Forex from other sources? How are we encouraging foreign investments in Nigeria? What are we doing about our security situation to attract foreigners to come and invest here? Those are the issues that I think we should be examining, not assuring us that banks will give us Forex or that banks will give what they don't even have.
Well, that's definitely one to chew on. But if you look at the right of the alleged fears over domiciliary account deposits, there were fears that the monies that people had in a domiciliary account were going to be changed into Naira. But the CBN says no such thing. That's just fake news, so to speak. What are your thoughts? I mean, that certainly must be reassuring, isn't it?
Honestly, it was a shock. It was a shock that it could even have been imagined. It was a shock because I just can't imagine you having a dumb account and for anyone whatsoever, for whatever reason, to think that that could be converted to Naira. But I guess those people expressing the fears are aware that in Nigeria, sometimes anything goes. So they were probably afraid that, well, CBN could come up with another decision to actually do that in order to have access to more Forex. But it's gratifying that CBN has come out to assure us that it's never going to do that, and it should never even contemplate it at all.
Let's leave it there for leadership newspapers.
Quick look at the Blueprint newspaper just before we take that break. After 44 years in operation, NNPC ready to declare 2020 dividend. That's according to the GMD of the NNPC. Lists relinquishment costs, legacy liabilities, others for majors divestment. Fixing nation's 4 refineries should be the ultimate. That's according to Ade Folarin. And it's a sign of efficiency in management that's ascribed to Idakolo. I mean, what do you make of this?
Well, first of all, I want to know my own share of the dividend. Because when NNPC says it's going to give Nigerians dividend, I was like, wow, is it going to be shared among the 200 million? And
maybe the first question you want to ask is, are you a shareholder?
So why are they saying Nigerians? It's our own. We own it. We own it. Okay. So, and I guess that is why it's also specific about Nigerians, and he must have, measured his words appropriately, not saying shareholders.
Okay.
So, Nigerians. So, we want to know what the sharing formula is going to be like. In any case.
And which accounts are going to be deposited. Exactly. Well, That's something to chew on, maybe as reassuring as well. But we have to thank you very much this morning for being a part of our conversation. Olabisi Folutile is a former editor with the Punch newspaper and runs editor-in-chief of franktalknow.com.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, that's today's papers. We're back to take on the issues for the day. Quite interesting ones, I tell you. Please stay with us.